Am I the a-hole for threatening to call the police on my brother for trying to force me to babysit his daughter after I already told him multiple times beforehand that I don't want to babysit her? I, 29 male, have a brother, 27 male, who has a 4-year-old daughter. His daughter's mom passed away because of birth complications and has been raising her mostly alone ever since. Recently, he asked me if I could babysit her for the night so he could go on a date. I refused because I'm not experienced with kids, and frankly, because I simply don't want to babysit. My brother kept insisting, saying that he's too tight with money to pay for a babysitter, but I kept refusing to do it. However, one day at around 7 p.m., I suddenly hear a girl knocking at my door, and there was my niece, while my brother was nowhere to be found. I let her in my home, and then I started calling him multiple times, but he wouldn't pick up any of my calls. After half an hour, I ended up giving him a message that if he doesn't come back in 15 minutes, then I'll report him to the police for child abandonment. He came back after 20 minutes. Luckily for him, I didn't call the police yet. He was absolutely furious with me and started berating me literally in front of his daughter, but I eventually made him leave my house with my niece. However, afterwards, he kept giving me messages about how I failed as both a brother and an uncle, that I proved to my niece that I don't love her and just see her as a burden, and that I couldn't even allow him his night of fun when he hadn't been laid since his daughter was born. I messaged him that the last thing is his problem, not mine, so he needed to figure it out on his own, instead of pining on me against my will. However, this only got him to send even more venomous messages. My partner, however, thinks that I'm acting like an a-hole to him, and that we could have taken care of my niece for this night without creating a scene. Am I the a-hole for not having much sympathy for my brother's situation and not wanting to babysit his daughter? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Did he even know if you were home? What if you had been out on a walk and he just saw a car out front, for example, or someone had taken you out? What if you had been drunk or otherwise inebriated? You don't need a reason to not want to watch someone else's child, but your brother is out of line. If he can't afford a babysitter for an evening, he shouldn't be dating. If money is that tight, I feel like he isn't prioritizing the proper things, like his child. He abandoned his child so he could try and get laid. Your comment about not dating if he can't afford a babysitter is spot on, even if he had other family members willing to babysit for free. For real, I know money isn't everything in a relationship, but who in their right mind would date someone who can't even afford to spend $60 for a babysitter? I personally make a poverty wage, and that's one of the reasons I have taken myself off the dating market. Both things can be true. Your brother needs to figure this out, and you could have done him a favor. However, leaving the kid without permission is so far over the line that the line is a dot. Not a-hole. This is where I'm at. His co-parent, possible partner since OP doesn't say, literally died. And OP hasn't helped him with childcare once in 4 years? Of course, he is under no obligation to do so. But I can't imagine hating my sisters that much, or being that selfish of a person in general. I have very little experience with babies/toddlers, but I learned from my coworker because she was struggling with her health so much. Of course, brother is the biggest a-hole in this situation, especially with the whole sex frame. Not cool. This is definitely a not the a-hole situation, but overall, seems very everyone sucks here, unless OP gives background info that justifies treating his brother like that. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I go on vacation instead of my brother's wedding? My brother Tom, 36 male, and I, 26 female, have never had a really solid relationship. Due to our age gap, we didn't much spend time. And by the time I was old enough to develop a personality, he has moved out of the house. For the last 2 years, my brother and his fiancée Sarah, 32 female, have been planning their wedding, and it's coming up in September. I was asked to be a bridesmaid. I figured I was only asked as a courtesy since I'm her soon-to-be sister-in-law, but I still took it seriously, and I have been a bridesmaid for the last 2 years. Just a few weeks ago, I managed to save up to buy the $800 bridesmaid dress. Overall, in the last 2 years, between group outings to parties, dinners, lunches, clothes, etc., I spent thousands of dollars. Eventually, all the girls in the wedding and I became extremely close, and I started to get hyped for the wedding. Sarah recently got close with her brother's wife, Becky, 30 female. And last week she dropped the ball on me, that she no longer wants me to be a bridesmaid and she would prefer if Becky would take my place. It broke my heart a little, but it's her wedding and it's not my place to tell her how to run it, so I said it was fine. So yesterday I went to my brother's house to pick up the bridesmaid's dress and was going to see if I could return it since it was within the time frame. Sarah was completely appalled and said that Becky was going to wear it since she and I are the same size. I said that would be fine, but they would have to pay me the $800 for it. Sarah said that Becky couldn't afford to, and I should just be nice and let her use it, and said that I could keep it after the wedding. I explained that I'm not just giving away the dress, and I'm not ever going to use it after the wedding. After some bickering back and forth, I just ended up taking it and leaving. My brother and Sarah tried to compromise with me and say I could be the assistant flower girl, and I felt offended at the offer. After I said no, they then said that Becky could give me $250 for it. Again, no, and I returned the dress and got a full refund. I told them I understand that it's their wedding, but they are being extremely disrespectful to me, and I don't need to deal with it, and I'm not even going to the wedding. Today my coworker says she has an extra round-trip plane ticket to go to Miami that she'll sell to me for half the price. Plus, I would have to pay for half the hotel, and I can go hang out with her in Florida. The only downside is that I'll be in Florida for the week of my brother's wedding. So will I be the a-hole if I just go party in Miami instead of going to my brother's wedding? Not the a-hole. Go to Miami. A wedding is not an event where a soon-to-be sister-in-law and your own brother crap all over you, and you just smile and take it. A 26-year-old assistant flower girl? Really? How insulting. OP, one of the nice things about declining an invitation is that you need not give a gift. A card of congratulations is all etiquette requires. And I think you've already overspent, both literally and emotionally, on this wedding. If it's the original plan, an adult flower girl/boy can rock it. I've seen people do dances, throw petals at guests, just absolutely dial the silliness up to 11. But as an afterthought, potentially following a little girl? Hell nah. Go to Miami and have a good time. Not a-hole. They disrespected you, so you don't have to be there if you don't want to. They literally removed you as a bridesmaid after they had you spend so much money. I'm proud of you for returning the dress, instead of letting them walk all over you and take it for free. You might not be able to ever be close with his brother if he finds out you chose partying in Miami over his wedding. Also, may affect what parents/other family think of you, but not sure if any of that is relevant. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was planned. They just happened to remove the bridesmaid that is the same size as Becky. They just happened to do it after OP has raised the money to buy the dress, and then they try to force OP to lend the dress to Becky or sell it at an extreme discount because Becky can't afford it? Smells fishy. I hope OP has an amazing time in Miami. It will certainly be more fun than going to a wedding for family members who think they can treat her like disposable garbage. They did you dirty. That's what I was thinking. I would also lose out on the $800 dress. And if I was going to be the assistant flower girl, I would have to buy another dress. This whole ordeal has stressed me out, so maybe I need to relax in Miami. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my parents to please leave the parenting of their grandson up to me and my wife, yet not doing the same with my in-laws? I, 26 male, have a 3-month-old son with my wife, 24 female. He's our first child. I have a good relationship with my parents. However, they, especially my mom, have a difficult time respecting my boundaries, and they were a bit overprotective of me growing up. I am their only child, so naturally they are going to feel protective of me. While I wouldn't go as far as to describe my mom as a helicopter parent, she seemed to have a hard time allowing me to make mistakes. She would want to have a say in anything I was doing and offer advice whether I wanted it or not. When I was little, this was totally understandable, but as I grew up, it became very annoying. When I moved out, I told her that now that I'm grown up, she needs to respect my boundaries, as well as accept that I might do certain things differently from how she does. I've requested that she please ask me if I want help/advice with something, and to please respect my wishes if I say no. She seems to have a very hard time with us. She'll reluctantly say she'll try to do that. But honestly, I don't think she's making enough effort. We've argued about this many times. It really feels like she doesn't trust me. When my son was born, I asked both of my parents to please leave the parenting up to me and my wife. And if we need help, we'll ask. They agreed, though my mom seemed reluctant, which isn't a surprise. Now, I didn't think it was my place to ask my in-laws to do this because they're her parents, not mine. I told her that if she would like her parents' help/advice with raising our son, it was fine with me, and the decision of how much or how little involvement her parents had was up to her. I am also more comfortable with my wife's parents because she's the youngest of 4 children and therefore they have more experience as parents. They know when it's appropriate to offer help and when they should take a step back. Anyways, today we're having a barbecue for the 4th of July. We invited both of our families. It was the first time we've all been in the same room since our wedding. My mom saw how much my in-laws were helping with our son, feeding him, changing him, putting him down for a nap, etc. They're mainly doing this because my wife is busy in the kitchen. My parents took me aside and asked why I want my in-laws' help but not theirs, and I told her the reasons. Dad took it pretty well as he enjoys being a fun grandpa, but my mom is very hurt. Now I feel bad. I was looking forward to a fun day with our families, but now I'm feeling guilty. My mom basically is just standing around doing nothing and looks hurt. My feelings of wanting her to leave the parenting up to me and my wife hasn't changed, but I don't know how to express this without upsetting her. Honestly, I'm kinda wishing everyone would just go home. Now for the comments. It's one thing to say that you want your parents to stay out of any parenting decisions, but it sounds like you've pretty much asked them to not lay their hands on your son. Feeding and changing are basic care. Why can't they help with that? It sounds like your mom is trying to stay within the boundaries you've set, but is upset that your in-laws don't have the same/any boundaries. I can understand why she's upset. Your children are your parents' only chance to be grandparents, and you've decided they're not going to get much of a chance to do anything. You complain that your mom was too controlling in your childhood, and it seems the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Find a better balance. You're the a-hole. Man, I feel like people's responses are going to heavily skew based on whether or not they can empathize with OP. Being raised by a guilt-tripping, boundary-stomping mother, I can totally understand his hard boundaries. There's no balance because he has a lifetime of her not respecting his decisions as an adult, and has given up trying to reason with her. It sounds like the current situation is that the in-laws can freely help, while his parents have been told to back off and pretty much not touch the child. They could ask, would you like to give the baby his bottle? Or, please could you change him? That would involve them without handing over any control or decision making. It may work or it may not. If it doesn't, then they can readdress the boundaries. I'm going to go with not the a-hole. Some people just don't know when to quit, so it's best to not let them get started. It could also be in how the advice is delivered. We tried to let all of our parents do the same things with our son, but it wasn't working out. Some weren't good with safety, some ignored how we wanted things done, etc. It sounds more like your mom doesn't treat you as an adult, or at least struggles to, and your wife's family doesn't have that issue. That is going to cause some problems. I would maybe sit down with your mom and tell her as she gets better with understanding and respecting boundaries. You two, 3 with your wife, can reevaluate what you're comfortable with. Last story. Am I the a-hole for inviting my former stepson to a barbecue? I finalized my divorce last year. When things fell apart between us, she said she didn't want anything to do with my kids anymore, except for the one that is hers as well. But I didn't feel the same way about her son. I've always liked him. He was 17 when everything became official with the divorce, and I told him to keep in touch with me and that I would always be there for him. Last month was his high school graduation, and he invited me and all my kids. My ex was angry that I was there, but we didn't sit near her. It was my custody week with our shared child, and I told him he could sit with his mom if he wanted to, and he did. Afterwards, my youngest said his mom told him I was a bastard, which was real nice, I think. She ended up telling me over text how I ruined one of the most important days in her life for her. Well, the 4th of July is her custody week, and I asked if our kid could come over to my barbecue for a few hours. I also invited my former stepson. She said no immediately, even though I always make concessions for her, like having him go sit with his mom at his brother's graduation, which I never had to do. My stepson agreed to come though. I guess they have been fighting in the build-up to today, because she texted me a couple of hours ago saying our son was coming and her son was bringing our child over and then back home. She also said I ruined this holiday for her, like I ruined her oldest graduation. She said I am petty, hateful, resentful person that won't let her have any peace, and she hopes one day everyone sees my true colors. Am I really the a-hole? I just want to retain a relationship with a kid I care about. It's not easy to be someone's de facto dad for some really formative years in their life and then forget about them. I taught this kid to drive and bought him his first box of banana wrappers. How am I supposed to just drop him like a hot potato? But even my youngest thinks I'm being unfair to his mom. He said I need to stop being mean to her. So maybe I really am the problem. Info. Can I ask the reason for your divorce? Because it seems strange to me all this hate of your ex towards you for no good reasons, and the fact that she wants nothing to do with her son's half-siblings. But even my youngest thinks I'm being unfair to his mom. He said I need to stop being mean to her. Parental alienation from your ex, or you left something out if your youngest child also feels that you are bullying their mother. It's difficult to make a judgment with so little background info. We were constantly fighting. I felt like I was failing my kids as a father by exposing them to so much animosity. I realized we weren't a team anymore, but opponents in a battle. Our fights had taken over our lives. We couldn't get through a date without some argument resurfacing. We weren't intimate anymore. We were just roommates who bickered incessantly. Well, there's someone who's petty, hateful, and resentful in this story, but it sure isn't you. Congratulations for being the stepdad everyone wishes they had. You're doing great. Not the a-hole, and take care. Also, the mom is alienating their youngest son against OP by telling lies about him, calling him names in front of the kid. OP, you're not the a-hole, but the mom really sucks in my opinion as per the post. Yes, you should be more concerned about your ex manipulating your youngest child against you. Not the a-hole. An invitation isn't a summons. He didn't have to come. You asked, he could have said no. As long as you are minimally respectful when you get a no, you're not being a terrible parent. It sounds like your ex may be trying to manipulate your youngest though. Am I the a-hole for calling my brother a disgusting gross man at his daughter's birthday party? My brother Paul and I are not close at all. We have very different worldviews and have incompatible personalities. I can tolerate him, but I would never consider him a friend. He's been married to Lisa for 1 or 2 years now, and they have a beautiful daughter together. My girlfriend Amy and I were invited to celebrate my niece's first birthday. Most of my family was invited, and it would be the first time I would have seen them all together, as I only see my family once or twice a year with a few exceptions. Amy and I arrived a little earlier than we were supposed to, and instead of waiting in the car, we decided to go in. The first thing I noticed is how calm my brother seemed to be in contrast to Lisa, who was frantically running up and down. When he saw Amy, he immediately handed the baby over to her and got a beer to sit down and watch TV. Lisa was clearly struggling, and he was content with a beer and Netflix. I don't want to be rude, and maybe this was a one-time thing, but it bothered me how uninvolved he was. He handed Amy a baby with a full diaper with vomit on its clothes. Eventually, Amy, Lisa, and I finished everything. The house was clean, the food was ready, and Lisa looked ready to host a big gathering. We all paid zero attention to Paul. When my family arrived, I thought everything was going well. I avoided Paul and enjoyed speaking to my family. After we sat down to eat, Paul approached me, drunk, thanking me for helping Lisa. I didn't want to be around him for long and moved out of his way, but he was very persistent. I was ignoring him, but he started talking about Amy. Protect Amy like a real man, or you've got a great woman by your side. You know what? Whatever. It was slightly odd and mildly uncomfortable, but I was able to brush it away. Amy was trying to sober him up a little bit before the cake cutting, so she was selectively hearing. We tried to get him to stop talking and drink water. However, he had a lot to say about Lisa. He was complaining about how pregnancy ruined Lisa's body and how a baby ruined his life. Amy and I kept looking at each other awkwardly, and we were soon going to leave him be. We didn't leave the conversation soon enough. He began complaining to me about his intimate life, or lack thereof, and commenting on how desperately he wanted to sleep with someone fit like Amy. This made both of us extremely uncomfortable. Amy left, quickly apologizing to Lisa while I told him that he was a disgusting, gross man who needs some freaking help before I left. Apparently, this made him super upset and he started wailing at a party. Paul told everyone that the reason he was crying was because of my words to him. He got over it quickly, but a few people told me I was wrong to shame a father on his child's birthday. I could have probably left without making a statement. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Wrong to shame a father on his child's birthday. Father. Lol. Okay. Your brother could not be bothered to help his wife prepared for his child's party. One-time thing or not, that is not acceptable. He then handed his baby over to the first available woman to deal with the diaper and a soiled clothing. During his child's birthday party, he made remarks about how said child ruined his life, ruined his wife's body, and compared her now ruined body to someone he finds more attractive whom he'd prefer to be intimate with. His brother's girlfriend to put a cherry on top. You are not the a-hole, and he should be ashamed of himself. I hope Lisa figures out how to leave him. No, he barely even acknowledged the both of us. My girlfriend went to go say hi to him, and he just handed her the baby like it was a piece of plastic. That's really awful. I really do hope Lisa can find her way out of this relationship with him. Your brother already resents a 1-year-old baby, and probably Lisa for doing it to him. They're both better off without him around. Not the a-hole. You shamed an unsupportive misogynist at a child's birthday party. You should reach out to Lisa to see how she's doing. Is she okay with him talking about her like that? If she wants some help putting his stuff in boxes, that sounds like something to rally the people who care about Lisa over. Amy told Lisa all the terrible things he said about her. Lisa didn't seem too upset, though it was said over a phone call, so I can't properly gauge her reaction. She sighed and quickly changed the subject. Maybe she's heard it before, or maybe she doesn't want to dwell on it. I'm not sure. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for ruining my sister's vacation? I'm 22 years old. My sister is 26 and has 2 children, a 2-month-old and a 2-year-old. I always thought she should not have gotten another child because she can barely take care of the other one, and most of the time asks other people to take care of them because she can't do it alone. Our mom is one of the people who goes and helps a lot. Definitely now that the baby's born. Now for the vacation part. I booked a vacation to the beach a year ago and it was quite expensive. But this is something I really wanted, so I saved up for it. I asked our mom if she wanted to go with me. She said yes. I booked and paid for 2 people. A month before we left for the vacation, my mom said my sister was also coming with us because her boyfriend was away that same week on a bike vacation. There wasn't really a discussion about it. They just announced it. Afterwards, I went to our mom and said my concerns about how I was afraid I would have no time for myself, and I would have to babysit all the time. Something about me? I'm highly sensitive and I get overwhelmed very quickly by constant loud noises, and as an introvert, being around people mentally drained me to the point I can't do anything anymore but just sleep. They know this. We're now 4 days into the vacation and everything I feared came true. I have to constantly keep the 2-year-old busy while my mom and sister are on their phone or taking care of the baby. Even when I go somewhere else to be alone for a second, like lay on my bed or something, he follows and keeps asking to play. I love him, but it gets too much for me. The only way they leave me alone is when I'm sleeping, so I have been doing that a lot, which means that I wasn't able to do anything what I wanted. Now, my sister told me today that I'm ruining her vacation because I make long face all the time. I don't know if that's an English expression, but in Dutch it means I'm unhappy all the time. I was so annoyed. I told her, what do you mean ruining your vacation? I paid for it. This is my vacation. She began yelling and said that just because I paid for everything doesn't mean I can sit here and ruin it for her. I said, you invited yourself. I didn't ask you to be here. And said that they promised I would not have to babysit. She began yelling louder and said I haven't touched the baby while we were here. That's a lie. I have given him his bottle a few times and held him while he slept and cried plenty of times. I told her who has been keeping the 2-year-old busy. She got angrier and said, isn't that normal for you to want to play with a 2-year-old as his aunt? Our mom was looking at me like I've kicked the children. Because how could I complain about playing with my own nephew? They stormed out and yelled that there's really something wrong with me, and I should think about what I said. I've been crying nonstop and have no clue what to do anymore. They don't talk to me, and I'm stuck here with them until Friday. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your sister sucks. Also, the mother sucks. I am sure she was worried about leaving her older daughter at home with 2 children when both she and the father would be away. But it's not fair to ruin her younger daughter's vacation, which she paid for, by inviting the sister along. Not the a-hole. Yes, Mom threw her younger daughter under the bus to help out the older. None of this is fair. Wish people would stop having children when they cannot take care of them. Gosh, how difficult is that? I'm like Opie exactly. I cannot be around too many people and too much stimulation. Next time, just do by yourself. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your sister took advantage and your mom didn't care about you or your feelings. Go off on your own. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. When you get back, set boundaries and leave them to it. Your sister's kids are not your responsibility. Next time, go away on your own or go with a friend or a solo traveler's group. Neither your mom or your sister have thought about you or your feelings. It's all about your sister, her needs, and her kids. They'll probably call you an a-hole, but they're so self-absorbed. Your mom playing granny and reliving being a mom, and your sister just being herself by the sounds of it. Just keep your boundaries. They will run to you again eventually for help, so make sure you say no. Not the a-hole. I know it's hard when you are the youngest and one perp is your parent, but you are handling yourself fine. If you need help, show them this post. Tell them people around the world think that they are a-holes who have ruined your vacation and they need to shape up or go home. You love them, but not their entitlement. This was your vacation, and your mom is your guest. Your sister was uninvited. They owe you an apology each and some consideration. Go and do the things you want, and they can stay in the hotel room. If they go to the beach, they need to assign one of themselves to the baby and one to the nephew. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being rude to my dad after he excluded me from a family vacation? I, 15 female, live with my mom, however, have always maintained a close relationship with my dad, 49 male. 3 years ago, he began dating a woman, 38 female, who has 2 kids, 11 male and 7 male. I've never liked this woman or her children, but have always tried to be civil with them for the sake of my dad's happiness. Since they began dating, they have split up about 3 or 4 times. And each time they break up, my dad insists he hates her and that he won't get back together with her. But time and time again, I discover that they are back together. The most recent time they split was due to the fact that she doesn't try to include me in anything, and has never in 3 years tried to make an effort with me. But a little over a month ago, my dad reveals to me that they are going to a festival together, just the 2 of them, as they had won the tickets when they were still together and they were non-refundable. Fine, whatever, cool. I come to find from social media that her 2 children have also gone on the trip. So I called my dad and was upset that he didn't tell me that they were going to. And he continues to tell me that he did not tell me they were coming. But he realizes that he didn't tell me they were either. The next week, he accidentally lets slip that they are in fact back together. And it was in fact a family holiday. Last week, my dad told me that he would be joining his girlfriend, her kids, and a few other families they know on a vacation to Egypt. I asked him how this came to be, and he told me that the trip was already booked. And now that he and his girlfriend were back together, they told him that he could join them as there was enough space in the room they had booked. This seems like yet another lie, as he would have to book a plane ticket, get a larger room, and tell the hotel that he was coming to, among other things. And he can't just be tagging along. It doesn't work like that. I feel as though him telling me he was just tagging along as there was one extra space is just an excuse as to why he won't bring me with them. I've been visibly upset and icing him out for the past week, but despite a few side eyes from him, he hasn't mentioned it. I feel justified in being angry at my dad, but my nan thinks I am being a brat by being rude when he has done nothing wrong. Am I the a-hole? For context, I have never been on vacation with my dad anywhere, and I'm just upset that he is taking someone else's children on this experience before he has me. Edit. I don't make a big issue of not liking his girlfriend or the kids, but it's just known that they aren't my favorite people in the world. The last time I saw the kids, we actually got on quite well. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. People often get new families and forget they can't treat their first kids like crap. It's quite sad. The dad has a child and is close to him and loves him. Why would he push Opie away to be for a crappy girlfriend in what is clearly a harmful relationship? Not the a-hole. Sorry that he is excluding you. Please understand that he has this condition where he doesn't have a spine. Symptoms can include weakness, cowardice, and no resolve. That's why he fails to firmly to include you and or defend you from his malignant mess that's called girlfriend. In all seriousness, you have so much ahead of you. And he will regret not being a father to you, especially when you start hitting life's milestones. He's taking you for granted when you matter. I misread the condition. I thought he was simply not thinking with his head and only worried about getting laid. Not the whole. Your father's lying to you, and not even lying well. I'm sorry that he has capitulated to his girlfriend, and basically evades you being in his life in a meaningful way. This will likely result in you growing your resentment and eventually going no contact with him. In any case, I feel sad for your situation. All the more so because your dad is gutless and cannot even bother to tell you the truth. What an awful way to find out that some adults suck. Not the a-hole. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not returning my boyfriend's calls while he was on vacation? Plus little update. My boyfriend's family had their big family reunion last month. They really do it up big and have lots of events and activities. Stuff like going to amusement park, renting boats and jet skis, going to concerts, stuff like that. I was invited and was looking forward to going for well over a year. My boyfriend and I had talked about it numerous times. He had told me it started August 5th and would probably be about a week, but he wasn't sure what day we would be heading back. On July 19th, I asked him if he knew the final date so I could finalize the plans with our pet sitter. He told me it had been moved up to the 25th of July. On the 22nd, I told him I was having trouble finding a pet sitter, so I don't think I could go. On the 23rd, one of the people I put feelers out to got back to me and we had coverage. I told my boyfriend that I was able to find someone last minute. He told me that since I wasn't going, he changed his plans. And instead of driving, his parents bought him a plane ticket. The plane tickets were upwards of $800 since they were so close to the departure date, which was definitely way out of budget. So he went on his vacation and I stayed home. We had been fighting a lot about the situation. Him not telling me the dates promptly, him changing the plans without talking to me about it, etc. I told him that I was upset I didn't get to go, and that his lack of planning and communication only had negative consequences for me. He attempted to call/text/FaceTime me numerous times while he was gone, but I never picked up or called back, and left all the messages on read. When he got back, he was really upset and called me an a-hole. He said that his family kept asking about me and wanted to say hi. He said that he really missed me, and since we had never spent that long apart before, it was really upsetting that I iced him out. He said that I was being childish for giving him the silent treatment. Things are still testy between us, but am I the a-hole for not talking to him while he was gone? Not the a-hole. If he really wanted you there, he would not have made it impossible for you to go. Well said. Reading this post, it's hard to believe that they are even dating. Seeing how he treated Opie in this situation, I wouldn't want to be with someone like that. Not the a-hole. You jumped through hoops trying to make this work and find a pet sitter. And he didn't even have the courtesy to give you a heads up that the dates changed 10 days earlier? Down to the wire, he knew you were struggling to make it work and left without you. He actually knew about the date change back in the end of May/beginning of June. That's even more frustrating, Opie. Holy crap. If I were in your shoes, I'd seriously be weighing the pros and cons of this relationship and end up dumping him. I don't like that he's playing victim here and calling you an a-hole and calling your behavior childish. He's taking no accountability at all. To be honest, I have been. That was a big part of why I didn't want to talk to him. Like, I really do love the guy, and just seeing his face and hearing his voice makes me melt. I wanted to think about things without his influence for a while. The other part was definitely a petty. Well, he doesn't want to communicate with me about things. Why should I? Little update. Well, guys, it's over. He still doesn't get that I am upset about the lack of communication and planning on his part. He is now saying I'm just trying to keep him from seeing his family. So now he can move back to the state they live in and he can see them all the time. I'm pretty heartbroken, but that's that again. Am I the a-hole for refusing to apologize to my brother? I, 38 female, was in a horrible relationship and have a 1-year-old son. I have a restraining order against my ex, and unless my ex takes me to court, he can't see his kid. My family know most of what happened, and they say they're on my side. I just got out of the refuge and into my own flat with my son, and ex doesn't know where we live. My brother, 40 male, was helping me move some stuff, and so we talked, and he kept asking, so, how does ex see his kid? Me being dumb and not putting 2 + 2 together, told him there's a form, it's free, and he needs to take me to court. If you worked out what my brother did next, Yay, have a cookie. Cause I was so blindsided that a family member would tell my ex exactly what form and what to do. I did double check that he didn't give my address, and the reply wasn't present, shaming me really for checking on our safety. Also triggered panic attacks and PTSD. So I sent my brother a message the next day explaining how hurt and angry I was, asking why he did that. First he tried to gaslight me saying I asked him, then changed to, a kid needs a dad. I flipped out and said for the countless time that he pulled a knife on me, and was answered that it was only against me and not my child, the argument's not the knife, that a baby doesn't disappear because there's an argument. The same ex that made social services want to put my baby in care, making me flee my home and live in a refuge 6 months, he says needs to be in a baby's life. Now he's not talking to me apparently, and my mom wants me to apologize to him because I yelled at him in text. I honestly want nothing to do with him. If that's his idea of support, I don't want it. But on the off chance I'm an a-hole for not apologizing, please let me know. P.S. This post will be shared with all relevant members as my words, tears, and breath are being wasted. And I keep being blamed for reacting to something that affects mine and my son's whole life. I get things muddled in my head sometimes, so if it doesn't make sense, also let me know. Also, yes, it is a breach in the non-molestation because he did it through someone else. I've collected a few breaches and reported them all, but because this one is through my brother, I bet 100% know that he will not admit / lie or whatever. Not to get involved now. I just got a letter from court. Not the a-hole. Your brother is a literal danger to you and your child, and should be cut out of your life immediately. Shame on him for failing to protect his sister and nephew. What a disappointing garbage human. Thank you. I feel like I'm going mad, as I'm being repeatedly told to apologize. I don't need any of these people really. I would not only not apologize, but I would cut your brother out of your life. He is a danger to you and your children by supplying information to your abusive ex. Tell your mother you will cut her off too, if she continues to take his side. You need to take a stand, OB, otherwise your ex will end up on your doorstep one day. The brother is also a whiny, bratty baby who runs to tell mommy that his sister shouted at him through text, and mommy is trying to save his hurt feelings by making his sister apologize, even though he has now put her life and her son's life at risk. Grow up, brother. You're a brat. If anything happens to your sister, I hope you get charged as an accessory to the crime. Your brother violated your trust and put you and your child in danger. If anything, he should apologize to you for staying in touch with your horrible ex and knowing that is dangerous, telling him how to get visitation with his child. Now you know you can't trust your brother not to have your best interests at heart. You should go low contact with him, not a-hole. The mother is also toxic and should be cut out, and any other family members that will take their side, including her dad if he's still married to the mom. They're willing to let OP croak in order for this man to have access to his kid, that he is also a danger to. It's messed up. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my niece keep her old bedroom? My brother and his family had to move to a different city because of their son's medical needs. I actually own the house they live in, but I didn't need that much space at the time I inherited it, so I let my brother's family live there. Since they were moving, my wife and I thought now would be a good time to move into the house ourselves. My brother's teenage daughter really did not want to move and go to a different school, so she asked instead to stay with us. We talked about it and agreed to it, so long as she didn't get into trouble and helped around the house. We also told her she would have to use the office downstairs as a bedroom instead of keeping her upstairs bedroom. There are only 3 bedrooms upstairs. My wife and I would be using the master, and the other 2 bedrooms would be for our 2 kids, female 8 and male 4. She was not happy about it because the office is not as good as the upstairs bedrooms, which truthfully is true. It is smaller and does not have an attached bathroom like the bedrooms upstairs. It also has less natural sunlight, so it can feel a little like a dungeon. It also doesn't have a regular door. It has these panel shutter-like doors which we can add a latch to, but my niece has less private and secure. The thing is, our daughter has been wanting her own bedroom for a while now. She has shared a bedroom with her younger brother her whole life, and she is sick of it. When we had brought up this move to her, we had already promised she would get her own room. Given their ages, it makes more sense for them to have the bedrooms upstairs close to us, rather than farther away downstairs in the office by themselves. My niece, brother, and sister-in-law, however, think it's mean to banish their daughter to the downstairs office when she's already dealing with enough change. They think that our kids can continue to share a bedroom because they're still young enough, and that it doesn't matter. Edit: a lot of people are mistaking the office room as being in the basement. It is not. Also, it does have windows. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Your children are still young enough to need to be on the same floor as you anyway, for safety and comfort reasons. Plus, it's your house. She can go with her parents instead. Exactly this. Not a-hole. I hope you didn't have to agree to their niece staying with them, especially when they had already promised separate rooms for their own kids. The parents are being unreasonable by thinking that her daughter just has to have everything she wants in this situation. Stay in the home and same school, but not have to adjust to the family that actually lives here. This is spot on. If I was a teen that wanted to stay at my same school with my friends, I would sleep in the dang basement and be happy about it. Jeez, I dream of a world without entitlement. Not the a-hole. It was kind of you to allow your niece to stay. Caring for an additional child isn't easy. Especially a teenager. Especially an entitled teenager. Not the a-hole. Wow, even your brother and his wife are saying you're the a-hole? After you let them continue to live in your house even though you have 2 kids? And you are only taking the house because they need to move, and still you generously offer your niece a room? It's probably time to let them fend for themselves. I didn't even consider that the larger family was in a smaller house, while they owned a larger one. My brother's family is actually larger than mine. They have 3 kids and we have 2. They pay rent just to cover maintenance, HOA fees, and taxes, and it's been around 16 years or so now. I don't know what they were expecting when they first planned to move, but I have made it clear to them that we would be living in the house permanently. Now for the mini update. After going through the comments together, my wife and I have realized that it is beyond our family's emotional and financial resources to have our niece live with us harmoniously. So I will be telling them that we are rescinding the offer. Last story. Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my boyfriend for not giving me money? My boyfriend and I have lived together for over a year now, but we moved into our own apartment 6 months ago. For 6 months, I paid almost all of the bills, rent, groceries, and extra expenses. I had a savings that is now gone, and I went into credit card debt. He was going through some health issues at a time, and although it hurt to watch my money go away, I knew it was what we had to do. It's just life, and relationships can't always be 50-50. He recently got a settlement that was almost $90,000, and he will be receiving more money. While we waited for the money to deposit, we had a conversation. I felt that I had contributed so much for a while, and it would help me out a lot if he gave me $4,000. I could pay my debt off and get my car fixed. He agreed to this. The next thing I know, he's buying a brand new car he didn't need. I thought it was dumb and expressed it, but I let him know it was his money and he could do what he wanted with it. He had a nice car that wasn't old, and I felt that he should have just paid that off. He rushed to do everything because he was impatient, so right now he has 2 cars he's paying for. There's a whole backstory as to why this happened. It would just be too much to explain. So now he's worried about money all of a sudden, even though he still has $60,000 left. This is where we keep getting into arguments. Because we had discussed me getting money, I had made plans with what I was going to do with it. I made 2 large payments on my credit cards because I assumed he was giving it to me that week. I try to bring up when he will transfer me the money, and his immediate reaction is frustration. We have an argument about it. I was upset because I felt embarrassed about it. It's embarrassing basically begging for money, and I was mad that we talked about something. And now it seems like he doesn't want to do it. I tell him that if it's a problem for him, to just forget it. I don't want to fight, but he ended up feeling bad and he sent me $1,000. I used all of that to pay down 2 of my cards. I tell him I want to sit down and talk about it again because we aren't understanding one another, and he tells me that he wants to lower the amount we agreed on since the stuff with his car is going on. I was obviously kind of upset because I wanted to use that money to fix my car and pay down my debt. So he says to pick what I want. Either he will fix my car for me or I take $1,500. I tell him I want to take the $1,500 because my goal was to pay my debt down. If I did that, it would take away how much money I'm paying monthly. Then I can save up to get my car fixed. I work from home, so I don't drive around much, and I can just take his car until I get mine fixed. We both seemed happy with that and moved on, until his parents came to town. His new car is a 2-seater, so they asked if we could take my car. I told them that I don't have AC. My brakes are squealing, my tires are bald, and my engine mount is really loud. So I try not to drive it unless I have to. They were horrified by this. And even though I begged them not to, they took my car to the mechanic to get new tires that day. I have no idea what his parents said to him, but he called that mechanic, got estimates, and is getting everything fixed on my car. This all happened so fast that I didn't know how to process it. I felt deeply embarrassed by his parents paying that much money to help me out. I was also confused about my car because him and I had made a deal on what we are going to do. I asked to talk to him again, and I said I was uncomfortable with what his parents did because I don't even know how I could properly thank them. He said not to worry about it because they love me and wanted me to be safe. Then I asked if I would still be getting the $1,500, and he lost it. We had a huge fight. He said, "No, you were getting your car fixed." I said, "Well, that's not what we agreed on." He gets mad and says I'm being ungrateful, and it's hurting his feelings. I said, "Then you are misunderstanding what I'm saying. Of course I'm grateful to have a working vehicle again. Having no AC in the summer sucks, and I've felt unsafe in my car. What I am mad about is that we have sat down multiple times now, and you've either ignored me or seem irritated that you have to give me money." We just kept bickering those 2 points back and forth over and over again. Then he says, "I have given you so much money already. What did you do with the $1,000 I gave you?" I snapped and said paid off the credit cards and went to debt in buying us groceries, so he had food to eat. Then he says, "Well, your car was important and needed to be fixed. We couldn't just have one vehicle." I said, "You know I don't drive a lot since I work from home." I get that at this point I was probably being petty, but I said, "Fine, I don't want another dime from you. But don't expect me to do anything with you. No dinners, going out to eat, no going out with your friends to the bar, nothing. Because I can't afford to keep up with your lifestyle. I will be paying this freaking debt off." He gets mad at me and says I'm throwing that in his face to be petty, because I know he would pay for me if we went out. I say I don't want it because he obviously has an issue with it, and I refuse to beg or have it thrown in my face. He then tries to say he is now paying all of the rent and I can't expect him to pay everything. I feel like that's BS, and I feel like our arrangement is fair. He pays all of the rent while I pay for Wi-Fi, electricity, and all of our groceries. That's a lot of money, especially the groceries. By the end of the argument, I was feeling guilty because I'm fighting with someone over feeling like they owe me money, and we left the argument somewhat unsolved. If we both are getting too heated, we try to acknowledge it so we can take time to talk away from it, think about it, and come together again. I feel like an a-hole because he went through hell to even get that money. We aren't married, so it's not my money, and he has already done a lot by giving me $1,000 and is paying to get my car fixed. But when I sit and think about it, I get mad because I only asked for $4,000 out of almost $90,000. I just can't seem to understand his side. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Leave him before he sucks you dry. He's taking advantage of your pride by making you bring it up again and again and then berating you. There is so much wrong here. Not the a-hole. He was quiet when he was the receiver, taking and taking. And I'm sure he would have been upset with you if you would have said no about anything when he was the taker. And now that is his chance to reciprocate, he is showing you his true colors. The resentment you're feeling will keep building every time you're forced to be the giver and he refuses to give or be there for you when you really need it. His parents paid to get your car fixed, so that gives him the out of the money he owes you? He's the a-hole. I don't understand. If he has money in savings, why were you paying all the bills for 6 months? I would be petty and go to his parents with this. Be extremely thankful for them to fixing your car and just let it slip that you hope their son will be just as gracious as to honor their agreement on payment. Not the a-hole, Opie. You have been too sweet in this regard. Not the a-hole, because this dude literally owes you money. He was happy to use you when he was hurting for cash, but now that he's flushed, he's painting you as some sort of gold digger and refusing to acknowledge the cash you put up to float him for 6 months. This guy is massively selfish, is fundamentally dishonest, and does not care about you. I would strongly suggest that you sit down, go through your bills from the 6-month period you confronted him, account for every cent, and then send him an invoice, minus the payments he's made so far. Make that the last conversation that you have about money, because after he pays it, you should break up. Also, when, not if, he refuses to pay what he owes and tries to start another argument about it or to guilt/gaslight you into thinking it's you being petty or money grabbing, walk away and end it right there. Then take him to the small claims court to recover the money he owes you. Believe me, OP, if you keep letting this go, it will become a pattern for him for the entirety of your relationship. He owes you money, and you're in debt because of him. I know you felt it necessary at the time, but now he's got the funds to repay you. He is refusing to do so. Mighty a-hole for having a celebration dinner after my brother's divorce. My brother just got his divorce finalized. No one in the family liked his wife, as she was not a nice person. Like she'd ask for ideas on what to spend his money on. Was the type of person that celebrated her birthday for 2 weeks and expected everyone to do the same. There were many arguments over that when people in our family didn't show up for each and every event she planned or wore the shirts she'd make for her birthday. She would interrupt when people were talking to talk about herself, then would go running to our mother anytime she asked for something, and my brother told her no. The tipping point was when our mother was going through chemo. She had issues with her feet swelling and would elevate them while resting on the couch. The one time we all came to visit, my brother brought his wife, and she just took the pillow out from under mom's feet to use it in the chair she was in because she was tired. But aside from expressing our concerns when they first started dating, we never said anything to him and tolerated her for his sake to not push him away and just griped amongst ourselves. But now they're divorced. The day that it was finalized, I took my brother out for dinner and invited some of our friends that hadn't been able to see him because of his wife. While we were at a restaurant, I toasted this new chapter in life, and someone said, "Real classy." And it turned out one of ex-sister-in-law's friends now works at a restaurant. We finished our dinner, left, went out for a while longer, then went home. And while watching a show with my wife, my phone was going off with notifications. All messages from my ex-sister-in-law chewing me out for celebrating their divorce. Since my wife wanted to know who was messaging me, I showed her the messages, and she's of mind that while she understands why no one liked my ex-sister-in-law, celebrating their divorce and toasting it was a prick move. She thought I had been exaggerating when I said I was taking my brother out to celebrate. It's been a few days now, and my wife is still shaking her head at me over it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. There could have been balloons and cake, but you kept it low-key. It's not your fault ex-sister-in-law's friend grassed you up. Block her and move on. The only way you would have been the a-hole would have been if your brother didn't want to celebrate like he's feeling down, sad, etc. and you decided to turn it into a celebration because you didn't like his ex. It doesn't matter if his ex was a wonderful person. If your brother is happy the divorce is finally over and you want to be there to help him celebrate, then that's great. If it were me, I would go to the sister-in-law's friend's workplace and let them know that OP's being harassed because she saw them at her place of business. Also, post it on their Yelp page/Google reviews and named a friend. Not the a-hole. You should have gotten t-shirts made and celebrated for 2 weeks. Do this, then go back to that same restaurant, maybe even for 2 weeks. Not the a-hole. Why is your ex-sister-in-law able to contact you, as much as you don't like her, and have her blocked ages ago? Lol. I don't use my Facebook often, so I completely forgot about it. She's blocked now. Out of genuine curiosity, for my own selfish personal reasons, did your brother ever say why he liked this woman in the first place? Like, did she flip the script after they got married? No, she was like that before they got married. His reasoning was that she was always sweet to him when they worked together. And one, he thought her ragging on him about his friends, hobbies, and style of dress was her wanting the best for him, so they could have a family someday. And two, she always told him about how her previous relationships were all abusive, so he wanted to do anything to help her and be good to her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to continue paying rent when I buy my own house? My boyfriend, 31 male, bought a house this year, which is an unprecedented achievement in our country. He earns 5 or 6 times more than I, 27 female, do, and we usually split everything 50-50. But lately I've been calling attention to the fact that I'm supporting more expenses, but I gave him a discount since he was going to buy a house. Just recently he bought a house and has asked me to move in with him. However, he's also asked me to pay a symbolic rent, which is essentially the same amount I'm currently paying for rent elsewhere. Additionally, even though he's hired someone to clean the house, I know that I'll still be responsible for a lot of domestic tasks. At first, I suggested that I pay for all the utility bills, such as electricity, gas, water, and internet, as well as food expenses. But he didn't agree, and we had a disagreement about it. Eventually, I agreed with him that it would be simpler to just pay a fixed amount, instead of splitting the bills and creating any entropy. The discussion has become more intense now, because I mentioned that I will be able to buy a house by the end of the year. I explained that it wouldn't make sense for me to continue paying him rent if I have my own place, and suggested that we find a solution that works for both of us. However, he thinks he is being overly generous, and he says that I would still be benefiting by paying that amount. Since I've been with him, I have had very high expenses, and I've told him several times that I can't keep up with his lifestyle and that he should support some costs, at least half, because I currently don't have the capacity to handle both expenses. He works very hard to make real money, and from the start of our relationship, I have been the one taking care of the domestic chores, cooking for him and helping out with grocery shopping. When we go out to eat, we split the bill, and I don't mind doing all this for him because he is amazing. He expressed gratitude for my efforts, but also stated his hope that I wasn't doing them expecting financial gain. He went on to share his vision for the future, stating his preference for separate accounts and everything being kept separate. He suggested that I live in his house by paying rent to assist him with his credit, but emphasized that the house would always remain his property. He also mentioned that even with children, he would like everything to be equally divided. I explained to him that I can't keep up with his lifestyle, as I won't earn as much as he does. However, he became skeptical and hurt, implying that I'm only with him for his money, and calling me an idiot for not understanding the situation and now not seeing things as they are. My friends have told me that he's taking advantage of me and that I'm just a convenience for him for now, and I'm starting to wonder if they're right. Should we be more individualistic in our approach to finances, or should we work together to build a good life and acquire property? Am I the one being unreasonable here? Not the a-hole. He is taking advantage of you. He is treating you like a live-in bangmaid, and on top of that, expects you to pay for the privilege. Not the a-hole, OP. Carry on with buying your house, and let your soon-to-be ex-boyfriend find someone else to pay towards his bills. He's treating you like a maid/lodger with benefits. You need a partner who values you. I always wanted to live in my own space, because at least when the nonsense happens, I could go back to my own sanctuary and not be stressed with a crapola. My boyfriend never understood that. And of course, we did not marry. Not the a-hole, and you need to run. Run far and run fast. This man, who makes 5 to 6 times as much as you, expects you to share equally in an investment where he reaps all the benefits. This is wholly unfair, and he is taking financial advantage of you. He is the one who doesn't understand the situation. You are together for a relationship, for the long haul, while he is in it for a financial reward. Please don't let his double talk dissuade you from moving on and finding somebody who values you for your worth, and not how much you can contribute to their financial stability. All of this, complete double talk and BS, where he gets to usually benefit financially and she doesn't. Then it makes 5 to 6 times more than her and makes her split the dinner bill every time? Hell no, he's a greedy jerk. So you helped him buy a house by supporting him, but he's not helping you buy a house by supporting you? Not the a-hole if I'm understanding correctly. Her boyfriend is milking her dry, and it's like she doesn't even realize it. He's basically using her to pay his mortgage, hence why he wants her to keep paying rent. He doesn't care how much money she has, as long as he gets to keep his own cash. I hope Opie wakes up and see what he's doing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's siblings she is not their mother and they are no longer children? My wife is the oldest in her family by 9 years, and she was subjected to being a parent figure to her younger siblings by her parents who were crappy and uninvolved parents to all 4 of them. Only difference was, while my wife was forced to raise herself, she was forced to raise her siblings, and she struggled with that. Her siblings view her as their mother. She did make sure they were okay, but once she was 18, she refused to be all they had, and they went into foster care due to the environment they were living in. My wife was forced to drop out of high school at 16 because she found it too much to handle and failed all her classes. Then at 18, she decided she needed to fight for her own future. This is part of why she made a decision to call CPS instead of raising her siblings. She got her GED and she got a degree at a community college. We met while she was in the middle of doing this. She told me all about her childhood and how tough it was for her. She did see her siblings and stayed in their lives, though they were sadly separated in foster care. But they are now 21, 22, and 24 years old and still see my wife as their mother. They were jealous when our children were born, and my wife had to remove them from her life for a couple of years because they were angry at her for being a better mother to our first child than she was to them. Contact has been back for a little over a year now, but they have not really changed. They made my wife feel guilty for pushing them aside instead of working on things. But then they make comment after comment about the effort she goes to for our kids and how she never did that for them, and said it was hurtful to call our son her oldest child when she has them. My wife has told me she doesn't know what to do because their childhoods messed up their perception of her, and I told her I would speak to them the next time. So they stopped by Easter Sunday and were saying to my wife they wanted her to get photos done with them and our kids to show she's mom of all of them and they're just as much her kids as our children are. I told them to stop, that their sister is not their mom, she's their sister. She was a child just like they were, and they are no longer children and they need to start treating my wife as their sister, and not their mother who owed them a certain childhood. They told me I have no idea what I am talking about and stormed out. This was the first time they left, and my wife looked so relieved. But her siblings gave her a hard time afterward. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You articulated something she'd been wanting to say for a long time in a way the siblings could understand. Good job. They don't like it. But the truth is, your wife gave up parts of her childhood to take care of them. Nobody got the childhood they deserved. Hopefully someday they'll understand everyone lost in this situation and how lucky they were to have her around when they did. Wish you guys the best. Honestly, it would have been much harsher, but the tact you showed makes you not the a-hole. Not the a-hole? Wow. This entire post is just disturbing. 3 adults can't seem to comprehend that their sister is not their mother is mind-boggling. They all obviously need some serious therapy, and your wife needs some distance. Kudos for having her back. I agree. One of my childhood friends was heavily parentified. She gave up her childhood to care for her mother, and then the 3 younger siblings her mother went on to have. It was heartbreaking to watch her try to hold together the family, starting at the age of 10. I know that my own mother reached out to authorities, who didn't do anything about it, and then provided us much additional help as she could as a single mother herself. My friend is super close with her sibs, but as much as she tried to shield them from their horrible situation, they recognized that it was not normal. They were kids too, so they weren't perfect. They all pitched in to make sure my friend could get as much as an education as possible, and they actually go above and beyond to show their gratitude every day. She's the only real mother they had, but they honor her sacrifices and love her for everything she did. The siblings in the OP do get some pity from me, as all of them grew up in a horrible situation that was beyond their control. But they're adults now. Surely they can see that what they're pushing for is wrong and unhealthy? Surely they are capable of understanding that punishing the sibling, who was forced to care for them as a child herself, is a twisted sense of logic and entitlement. As children, they may have had a past for being too young to see the situation for what it was, but as adults now themselves, they suck. Last story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my brother without childcare over a heater? Some backstory. I live with my 35-year-old brother and his wife and 4 kids, 3 girls, 1 boy, and all 4 and under. I'm basically a live-in nanny for them, and I live in their house rent-free because I don't have a job, while both my brother and his wife work. When they first got pregnant, they asked me to move in with them, with a promise that they would pay me for childcare. Well, that only lasted a month, and they proceeded to have 3 more kids in the process. I never complained because I do live in their house rent-free, and I know he really needed help. Well, they recently came into money trouble, and they now owe an insane amount of money, and they have both been working extra hours to make up what they owe. Now on to what happened. It's been really cold lately, and because of that, the house has been really cold. To turn on the heaters is a process, and I don't know how to do it. So my brother has been turning them all on, except for my room. My room is now the coldest in the house, and I can't sleep at night even with all the thickest blankets. I get pain when I'm cold, so I'm up all night in pain. I've been exhausted watching 4 kids by myself all day, so I have been asking my brother to turn my heater on, but he keeps saying he'll get to it. Well, a week ago he told me that he was never turning mine on because he needs to keep the bills down. I asked him if I just have it on at night and turn the ones in the main room off during the night. And he said no, that it's his house and he'll do whatever pleases in his house. And I don't get a say because I don't help financially. I didn't say anything to him right away. I just texted my mom and asked if she could pick me up. After she said she could, I told him that my mom was coming and I'll see if someone can come pick up my stuff soon. He asked me what I meant, and I only told him that he needs to find someone else to watch his kids. Either get a nanny or one of them quits, because I am not doing it anymore. He told me that I was being dramatic and that'll give me time to calm down. I said I didn't need time, and he told me to think of the kids and how they're super attached to me. I said I'll still see them with a parent present because I don't plan on babysitting anymore. At this point, his wife is trying to defuse the situation, and my mom showed up and I asked if it was okay for me to move back in with her, and she agreed and said she'll have my stepdad come pick my stuff up tomorrow. My brother has been blowing up my phone since, and he told our dad, so now he's blowing up my phone too. My dad texted me asking how I could abandon them knowing they're struggling. I feel bad because I did abandon them, but I couldn't do it anymore. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They're abusing you, at least financially. I didn't know it was possible to abuse someone financially. I don't really know what that means. Opie, they're using you as a slave. Your dad can go move into their icy room and watch 4 kids for free if it's so important. Suggest it to him. Otherwise, get your stuff and never go back. They'll try all the usual stuff. Yelling, pleading, begging, threatening. But don't cave. They need you. You don't need them. Not the a-hole. You did live there rent-free, but it's kind of messed up for him to not turn on your heater at night, especially because you were in pain. I don't see why he would treat you like that, especially because you took care of his kids. You'd think your health would also have been a priority? I have rheumatoid arthritis, and it flares up when I'm cold. My brother knew this because he was there when I was diagnosed at 16. He always seemed like he cared, and I realize now he didn't.